Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Will Cinematics video. Today I'll be reviewing Soul. So when I watched this movie, I have to say, I really liked it. Like, I love the movie so much. Now, I still think something went wrong. So at the end of the movie, I had this overwhelming feeling that something was missing. But before I dig any deeper, I'm gonna go over the plot. So the movie starts off with actually a really funny Disney logo with all these really horrible instruments playing. It really reminded me of the Universal meme that's been around forever. Anyways, the movie starts with Joe Gardner, our main character, teaching jazz. Joe is a really good jazz pianist, and his students are really bad, like hilariously bad. And he tells them a mini speech about his first experience with jazz. Then Joe visits his mom's tailor shop. While there, he gets a call about a new gig. The gig has the incredible Dorothea Williams, played by Angela Bassett, leading on sax. Joe is really excited and tries out for the gig. They accept him and they tell him to get a nice suit. Something to note is this purple-blue colored plane that Joe keeps returning to. It'll become important later in the plot. In all his excitement, Joe falls in a manhole and dies. I have to say this scene is really cool. It shows how death kind of like follows you when it's time. Like, there are 3 other ways Joe could have died before the manhole, but he just happened to fall into the manhole. Anyways, he becomes this cute little blue soul thing. I actually made my little character into a soul version of himself. I'm showing it here. I don't know, I had really fun making it. So let me know what you think. But anyways, back to the plot. He's on a giant ramp in what looks like space, heading towards this like giant white light. He soon realizes that he's dead and he tries to escape. I'm surprised nobody else has ever tried to escape the ramp. Like, I thought that was kind of weird, because as soon as he escapes the ramp, they notice that like the count is off and it's never happened before, and I was confused because I thought more people would be scared of death like he is and want to like get out of there. As I said, Joe escapes, and then he ends up in the section of this world where new souls are kept. This entity, one of many named Jerry's, explains souls to Joe. I thought this was like a fun thing, this whole name Jerry. Actually reminded me of The Good Place with the whole Jeremy Bearimy thing, and how that's how like the universe works and death works. Yeah, they're all named Jerry, which I thought was really fun, and they all like transcend like gender and everything, which I thought was really cool concept. But basically, Joe gets mistaken for a mentor and gets put with all these like mentor people. So meanwhile, Terry, who I hate by the way, I don't know why, but this character really freaks me out. Terry searches for Joe because they realize the count is off. Here we get a cute little video explaining soul sparks and what they do. Joe realizes he can use whoever he mentors to get back to the land of the living. Joe gets paired with 22, voiced by Tina Fey, and shows her that he's not who he says he is. I have to say, this movie honestly reminds me, I saw this on Instagram. Somebody said that this movie is a lot like just like a black version of Coco, and I kind of see it, the whole like journeying to the land of the dead, coming back, talking about life and death and the meanings behind that. In this room that they're in, we get to see like Joe's life in moments, and a really cool scene with all these like, almost looks like a stage of different Joe moments. And Joe sees it and is like really depressed, and he realizes that his life was like pretty worthless. Joe finds out he's in a coma, and he and 22 like head off. So 22 has been mentored many times, and every time has been unsuccessful. Like, all these famous people in history have died and become mentors. Like, all these like famous, very smart, educated, intellectual people have become mentors, and we see all these scenes of them trying to mentor her and it not going well. Oh, also for 22, I'm just gonna say her because Tina Fey is playing character, but honestly, I don't think we know 22's gender necessarily. I'm not sure where people stand on that, but I feel like it's a gray area there, because like I feel like any new soul could have like anyone's voice, but then like become whoever they're supposed to become on Earth. But I don't know, that's my take on it. But basically, back to the plot. Joe tries everything to get 22's spark to ignite. Then 22 shows him this blue sandy place, this like dark like purple blue sand, where focused people end up. So like when you're really focused on something, then you end up in that plane. It's kind of when you lose thought and you get stuck on something, and like you're not hearing things around you, you're kind of in your own space, and you kind of end up in this plane. And when somebody gets consumed by this thing, like when they get so consumed by this one thing they're working on, one thing they're doing, and they become these really scary things called soulless. Like, they actually kind of freaked me out. I like was not ready for that. Then on their like journey, they meet this hippie guy who's on this like giant purple tie-dye boat. With weird music, this hippie guy can like turn soulless back into souls. They help Joe get back to his body, but something goes wrong when both 22 and Joe get sent through the portal thingy. Joe ends up in a cat and 22 in Joe's body. This scene was really funny, and I was not expecting this part. Like, in the trailers, it didn't show anything like this in the trailers. I was not ready for it, and I really liked it. Basically, 22 initially gets really scared of the living world, and this really cool scene where she gets like overwhelmed by like how much is happening at once, especially because Joe lives in New York, so it's like a lot. But Joe helps her, and 22 tries like pizza and like loves it. It's a really cute scene. Then they run around the city until they find the hippie guy in the real world. He's actually like a living person who's always absorbed with his like sign spinning. He like spins signs for some store. And he's always so absorbed in that his soul is like free to roam that world. They didn't really explain too much into that. I have a lot of questions about it, but I thought that was really interesting. He says that at 6:30 he'll be able to do like a ritual where he can switch his souls back and like fix everything. So then Joe and 22 leave for home, and then they're interrupted when a student comes over. So 22 in Joe's body accidentally convinces the student to continue jazz. It's like one of his most talented students, like kind of stands out in the crowd. And she's like, so she really wants to quit trombone. 22 is a very pessimistic character. So she goes on like, oh yeah, you should totally quit jazz. Jazz is dumb. And then it like almost like reverse psychology, the student ends up continuing jazz. Meanwhile, Terry searches for them, and then while walking, there's this adorable scene where 22 like starts like enjoying life and playing around with like reflections and it's like air vents and like all these other things, and it's really cute. But then 22 rips like Joe's pants by bending down, so then they have to head to his mom's tailor shop. Then we see 22 give Joe's mom a speech about music, but it's like through Joe. Like Joe tells 22 what to say, so it's kind of like Joe giving a speech to his mom, but we don't really see Joe saying it because Joe's in the cat. Joe's mom doesn't like jazz very much and gigs and stuff. She feels like he's an unsuccessful musician. He should stick with something that provides like healthcare and like security instead of doing gigs. They get to the gig and they're ready to like switch bodies. Then 22 backs out of the switch that the hippie was going to perform and like yeets it into the subway, like runs so fast into like the subway. And 22 is running really fast into like the subway area, and then as she's running, a portal gets opened by Terry, and he like takes their souls out of the bodies and like puts them in the right spots and everything. And also 22's name, the whole like number thing, is because 22 is like a really, really old soul. Like 22 is the literal 22nd soul. 22's been around for a really long time because she's never received her spark. So when they get back, they see that 22 has received her spark for the first time. Like this is like she finally received her spark after so many, like I guess years. I mean, they're souls, so years probably don't mean anything. After so much time trying to get it. And Joe gets mad at her and thinks the only way 22 got her spark was through Joe's body and that he deserves a spark. And then she gives in and gives it to him. And then Joe jumps back into his body and 22 becomes a soulless. Like one of those creepy, tentacly, soulless thingies that are like consumed by like darkness in a sense. Then Joe does the gig and feels nothing from it. Like he does this gig he's been waiting for his whole entire life to play with Dorothea Williams and like all these other famous jazz players. And then afterwards, he realizes it didn't really change anything. His life wasn't like completely transformed. Nothing was different. So then he takes out all the stuff that 22 collected while in his body and thinks about like purpose and life's purpose and just thinks really deep. Like we don't actually see him say anything, but he's just like, you can see him like mentally doing like the clockwork. And then he plays a song and gets transported to the soul world. Like he plays a song based on like the feelings he's feeling and gets transported to the soul world. He sees soulless 22 and chases her down, and then she ends up getting out into like the world where the like baby souls, like new souls live. And it's really cool scene because the soulless are so dark and the baby soul world is so bright and blue. It really like, there's a very large difference in color. And then basically Joe goes into the soulless. The soulless is like made of like the sand. The soulless are like made of like the purple sand. They have like the soul on the inside and the sand like surrounding them. And Joe goes into that sand and pulls 22 out in this really cool scene. There's like a whole speech. There's this whole cool like sand Joe basically preying on her insecurities and telling her like she'll never be enough for her spark and all this stuff she feels about herself is like coming out. And he pulls her out of the soulless and like I guess saves her. And he tells 22 that she's worthy of her spark, and he takes back what he said. So then 22 is allowed to go to the world now. So being scared, she asks Joe to jump down to earth with her. And this really, really adorable scene that almost felt like a father-daughter type of scene. Like felt very mentee kind of cute scene. And then Joe can't go all the way down to the earth with her. Like there's how they show it is like the earth is like down below them and they're like jumping down into it and like soaring into it. And Joe being without a spark can't return to earth. with her. So they jump together, and then he like lets go, and then she like goes on her own. And that's the last we see of 22, unfortunately. Joe gets back on the ramp and is like ready to die, and then one of the Jerrys gives Joe a second chance, and he takes it. And then the movie ends with a little narration of Joe living his life to the fullest. Okay, so warning, this is about to be a rant, so just be ready. So one of the issues with this movie is because we don't really see Joe's character development. In the end, it like makes Joe not feel like a genuinely good person. Yes, Joe clearly cares about 22, but because we don't truly see his life after the events that took place, he could totally just go back to being like the a-hole he was before. Not like he wasn't permanently changed from his journey, but I wanted like 5 or 10 minutes of Joe's life truly showing things. Or another ending I'd be fine with if they showed a little bit of 22's life, showing that like it's time to tell a new story and how like generations are kind of like that. But as I've said a couple times, this ending is really what made the movie not hit me the way it should have. My favorite ending would be Joe deciding not to move on and going on to death. It just made the most sense to me. It felt very fitting. I think Joe accepting death would feel like good Pixar representation. But in terms of representation in general, I love the black representation in this movie. So I agree with what a lot of people are saying about the black people looking like real black people, which is sick. Of course, Pixar should continue that in their other movies as well. Anyways, getting back to the ending though, I'd like to compare this to Inside Out. That movie's ending really affected me after watching. I definitely felt something after watching that movie. Not only that, but that movie had a great message. I have to say, Soul had a very good message, a very good idea about the purpose of life. It really asked some deep questions, but when it was over, I was still asking why it had to end so suddenly, why it ended like that. I'm not sure if this is due to like COVID pressure or anything like that. I have no idea about like the logistics when it came to making this movie, but that could be possible as well. Anyways, that's my take for the most part. I like this movie a lot, and it deserves awards and stuff. But personally, I think the ending needs a little fixing. I know a lot of people out there that love the ending. It's just not for me. But I like this movie a lot. Joe's death would have really hit. I like this movie a lot, and it deserves awards and stuff. But personally, I think the ending needs a little fixing. Like, some people love it, some people hate it. I'm kind of in between, but more towards like the dislike side. Joe's death would have really hit me harder than what Joe coming back. Anyways, here's my rating. So for main character, I said 6 out of 10 because Joe's a good character, but he has some issues, like I was saying. He comes off a little, I guess, mean at the end, in my opinion. Supporting characters, I said 7 out of 10 because 22 and all the Jerrys and Terry and like that whole situation. All those characters are really fun. And then love interest, I said not applicable because there like isn't really a love interest. So for Pixar, I'm gonna put a new section titled Short, and also a new section titled Message, because those are two things Pixar movies seem to have a lot of. So for Short, I said 8 out of 10 because I thought the short before Burrow, which I actually have a review on, was a really good short. And then for ending, I said 5.5 out of 10 because the ending still needs some work in my opinion. And then for message, I said 8 out of 10 because I really love the message about life and everything. Animation, I said 10 out of 10 because I remember looking back on the animation. The animation is really incredible in this movie. Last but not least, score, I said 9 out of 10 because the score, the jazz, like all of that was really well put together. But that's my review. Thank you so much for watching, and guys, please let me know if you like the mini will I've been adding to videos. And as I always say, please remember to like and subscribe.